Okay, we are up and running. Paisley Burger Betting College Football Weekly Show, episode 6 already. Week 4 recap going into week 5. Mr. Jared Paisley, how's it going today?
Good, Case. Good. It was a nice weekend of college football. Another week in the books. Almost a month into the season here. Crazy to think. Yeah. Flying by, but we're going to keep taking it one weekend at a time. So got another nice slate with a huge game on deck, a top 5 matchup. So we'll definitely be getting into that game. As everyone knows, Georgia, Alabama. So definitely most exciting game of the year so far.
Exciting stuff. It's certainly rare to get a big game like that in September. Top 5 showdown there. So this is our recap for this previous week, week 4. Definitely the best week going back to week 1. So if you recall, we were up week 1. We were up a week now 4. 2 and 3, we were a little below 500. But that gets our overall record just about at 500. There you see it, 55 wins, 54 losses to tie, just about 51% win percentage. The biggest news, we hit our parlay last week where we just picked 2 underdog teams to win outright for plus odds. I think it was plus 504. $100 gets you $504, and that was Michigan, who I was on, and Mr. Paisley was on Tulsa. So, say the least, Jared, pretty good slate, pretty good week of betting for us last week.
Yeah, good bounce back week for the page. That's sometimes what happens in betting. It's just a week by week thing, so you can't get discouraged. So definitely a nice week. Very close in the locks again, almost getting the streak done there. That game was looking under in the USC Michigan game. We'll get to a full breakdown later, but was looking good all game. I was telling you before the pod, I was between that and the Tennessee under. Should have went the Tennessee under because that game had no chance of going over. So. But yeah, definitely some nice picks, and even some of our losses were even closer. And again, we'll break down some of these games like Oklahoma State, Kansas, that were looking good all game, or we had some nice things going in our favor, and then it just kind of didn't break the way we wanted to. So could have been even better, but again, still a really, really good week for the page for both of us here.
Yeah, lock 7-1 as you highlighted now throughout the season. We got Washington minus 12 last week, and then the under in the USC Michigan game, which surprisingly went over there at the end. But nonetheless, a pretty strong week. So we look to not bounce back, keep going, keep the momentum going, and hopefully we'll have another good week and we'll be way above 500 next week would be the goal. So with that being said, we'll go right into our week 4 recap. Try to keep this around an hour per usual, maybe a little less if we're lucky, but might as well just start. Friday night last week, Illinois going on the road in Nebraska, getting the win, 31-24 in overtime. This game was a surprise to me. I was on Nebraska, so thankfully the week wasn't a sign of how my week would go because I was on Nebraska, lost that first thing, and then ended up having a good Saturday anyway. But kind of a close game back and forth. Raiola, I thought, played pretty well for Nebraska. He didn't really do a lot of things wrong. He missed a couple throws at the end that ended up being a pretty bad result for them, probably costly. But a lot of credit to Illinois. And I don't want to say same old Nebraska yet, but just a disappointing game after all the hype. You're at home and you're a pretty decent favorite by a touchdown, 8 points, I think it was, and to go and have Illinois come into your house and win in overtime there, 31-24.
Yeah, I feel bad for Nebraska fans. I mean, every year it's looking like their year. This year especially. I mean, they have the quarterback still young as a freshman. Defense looked really good. You had the home field advantage, big primetime slot game, a Friday night game. Good spot to put on a good show, good message for the whole country. Yeah, I'm with you. I think surprise is a good word. I really thought Nebraska was going to win this one. I kind of like them as well, -7. Illinois went down, scored that early touchdown to make it 7-0. I quick live bet Nebraska at even money to try and, maybe think that was a good spot and just never lived up to it. A little more disappointed in the Nebraska defense. I really thought they were supposed to be really good, top 25, maybe top 20 in the country, some people were saying. And Illinois was just shredding them up the whole game, moving the ball downfield with their offense. That's a little bit below average, but maybe we got to give them a little more credit. The quarterback's playing really good for Illinois right now. Huge game on deck now after that huge win at Nebraska. Have to travel on the road now to Penn State that we'll get to later on. So Fighting Illini could really make some big statements here in back-to-back weeks. But yeah, a little more disappointing in Nebraska in this game.
Yeah. And that's also why I had Nebraska as one of my winners, I believe, last week going into this week, because I think I said, who knows how long this is going to last for Nebraska. So unfortunately, it ends for them, the hype. But still could have a really good season. And, you know, Illinois might be, well, I think they kind of already are a little bit better than we thought they would be. There's certainly no powerhouse to this point, but just a physical team, good defense. And how about this? Luke Altmaier, 4 touchdowns on Friday night. Didn't see that in my bingo card. So good game for Illinois.
Yeah, I got to give Illinois a little more credit, you know, and this will be a huge test if they can do it back-to-back weeks coming up here. But yeah, Illinois was kind of down on them. I think a lot of people were, but definitely got to adjust your power rating or thinking on them going forward here a little bit.
We'll keep it in the Big Ten. Michigan getting past USC in a close game, 27-24. I know this one stung you, Jared. Looked like it was going under for part of the game there, and over ends up hitting. Michigan only has about 30 yards of passing. I think I said one of the reasons I was on Michigan last week, and it really wasn't any scientific reason, was just that they finally had some sort of identity in offense. You know, we kind of knew they would run. They made the change at quarterback, running quarterback, play strong defense, run the ball. Even though USC knew what they were going to do all game, they didn't seem to have an answer for it. And their defense kind of, you know, looks like the old USC defense, just not being able to stop the run. Maybe USC was a little bit better, or maybe we're giving them a little bit too much credit early on after the win at LSU, highlighted that. But Michigan looked better for sure. They were able to control the whole game and really just got a big win at home and surviving a 2-loss September, which is not usual for Michigan, getting past USC 27-24.
Yeah, great call on your part, Case. The Michigan money line, that was a great play. Either to win the game or were they going to lose it by a lot. So nice pick there on the money line on the parlay. But yeah, I mean, it was 14-3 at half. USC could not move the ball at all. Michigan's defensive line dominated them the whole game. That was really the defense I was expecting. We were all expecting against Texas. So they really showed out well. Really good showing for Michigan. Still have some stuff to clean up offensively. I don't know if they could win every game throwing for 30 yards, but I don't know, maybe they could. It is Michigan. So, but yeah, I think a little disappointed in USC's defense. They just got out physical, outclassed, gave up a couple big runs. And then, yeah, it was 14-3 at half. It was looking good. USC couldn't move the ball, and then they had a couple late touchdowns to push that game over the total. But, yeah, really impressed with Michigan just doing it their way, their style, really controlling the game. In these games now going forward, they kind of have to get out to a lead. It's going to be hard for this team if they're not going to pass the ball, kind of like a service academy. It's kind of a hybrid to get down. If they're down 10, 14 points, to kind of throw their way back into the game. So if they get up in a game and you could see they're running the ball really good early, you know, I think Michigan could be a play. But, yeah, I mean, we talked about it, too, going into it last week, that it was around the same line that USC was giving that Texas gave, and Texas blew them out. We all know Texas is way better than USC. So that one was a little surprising, and just good call on your part and being on Michigan there. And Michigan was definitely the right side in this game.
Yeah, no, surprising win. Underdogs at home, getting a huge win. They really needed that one too, because if they didn't get that one, you probably lose to Oregon. You lose at the end of the season to Ohio State. Could lose to Illinois. I mean, we'll get to them, but could be looking at like a 4 or 5 loss season. So must win and a good win for them. Stay in the Big Ten. Rutgers winning on the road in Virginia Tech. Big win for them. Another game I was on with Rutgers with the points. Squeaker 26-23. What did you think of that one, Mr. Paisley?
Yeah, I mean, again, credit to Rutgers in this game, but again, I'm a little more disappointed in Virginia Tech. This was a team we talked about on the preview pod. I think a lot of people that were in the ACC really thought they could have a big year. You know, kind of be that little dark horse team that can maybe make a run at some nice odds before the season. But in these early matchups, they aren't really living up to the billing. The offense still a little clunky. Rutgers does have a good defense, so got to give them some credit. So Virginia Tech does have a nice game this week. I forget who they play, but another good test to see if they could bounce back. But like we talked about, the ACC is wide open. We were maybe looking for one of these lower tier teams. So Virginia Tech struggling early on, but back on the Rutgers side, I mean, this team is doing it the way kind of like Michigan, but passing a little bit more, running the football, playing good defense. They got a good coach. So this was a big win. It's not an easy place to play in Virginia Tech, as we know. So Really impressive win for Rutgers. I know a lot of people liked Virginia Tech going into the game. I was a little scared with the Rutgers pick, but they kind of controlled that game the whole way. So Rutgers was definitely the right side, and a nice win for Rutgers in the program there.
Yeah, and as we know, we call Blacksburg, Virginia, Blackoutsburg, from experience when we were there a couple years ago. Big win for Notre Dame that night.
Yeah, back in 2022 or
Virginia Tech.
2019, I forget when that was, but yeah, I had a couple too many drinks there. Fun time in Blackoutsburg.
Great time, though, to go. But anyway, nonetheless, big win for Rutgers. Staying the course, underdog on the road, getting the win 26-23. So now we'll go over to the Big 12. Utah, big win without Cam Rising on the road in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Knocks off Oklahoma State 22-19. A close game, kind of sloppy at times. Wasn't sure what to really expect without Cam Rising, but Utah, a lot of credit to them. Without their quarterback, a lot of people are, picking against them. And here they are kind of atop of the Big 12. It seems like it's kind of their conference to lose at this point, especially for what was going around around the league that day, which we'll get to. But big win for them. They're definitely in the driver's seat. And what do you think about that one?
Yeah, we mentioned this going into the game about Cam Rising's injury, and it was very important. And I think if people are following college football last year and going into this game, the injury news out of Utah is so hard to get a grip on, get a lead on. So this line was moving around all like 5-6 points during the week, flipping back from favorite to underdog. He was suited up. Everyone thought he was going to play. Then they go with the backup. He doesn't play at all. So Zach Wilson's brother actually at Utah leading the charge there. So really impressive from him. And yeah, I was really impressed with the Utah defense in this game. Really held Oklahoma State down. They couldn't run the ball with Ollie Gordon. Throw game wasn't really there. So Utah's defense really kept them in this game. They needed to because the offense wasn't going to produce as much. They did what they needed to do to get the win. But yeah, really impressive from Utah. I think we both had Oklahoma State, and like we talked about, had a good number, had them +1, 1.5. We get Rising not playing, so we're in the driver's seat there. They're at home, and they just didn't come through. So got to give a lot of credit to Utah. Oklahoma State now travels to Kansas State, another big test for them. Need to get that game for them. But Kansas State also lost last week to BYU, so both teams are going to be itching for a win. But like you said, Utah's now in the complete command of the Big 12 with a big win and with some of the other top dogs getting knocked off around them. So, yeah, Utah, if Cam Rising can get healthy, get him back, could be a really serious team. I think they could be a top 10 team by the end of the year and really make some noise later on.
Yeah, for sure. And even if they aren't a top 10 team, really when you look at the SEC, Big 10, and they still have a great shot at making a playoff, just if they're the best team in the Big 12, whether they're, top 10 caliber or not. Their schedule's certainly favorable. They got Arizona, Arizona State, TCU, Houston, their next 4. So a lot of opportunity there for Utah. And also, I just looked him up. I didn't know that was Zach Wilson's brother. He looks exactly like Zach Wilson, Isaac Wilson. So I don't know, but how I would feel about that. 2 interceptions, by the way, no correlation. Huge win for Utah, definitely in the driver's seat.
It must be in the Wilson bloodline to give a couple balls to the other team. So, but yeah, huge win for Utah. Hopefully Cam Rising's all right. And we'll talk about this with a lot of other teams and the uncertainty. And we touched on this last week with some of the inconsistency and looking really good and really bad. Utah's been kind of staying the course for a lot of years, not even just this year, but you're getting from them. They have a good identity. They play good defense. They're good on the D-line. You just need to get a little bit of output from the offense, and they'll win games like this in the 20s, low 20s, high teens. So Utah's at least a consistent team. Hopefully you could look to bank on. We thought it was Kansas State, maybe Oklahoma State. Yeah. These teams are just way too inconsistent to count on them going forward.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun conference to watch, especially how it pans out. So whether, it's a great team to win it or just kind of a free-for-all and a bunch of mediocre teams, it's going to be nonetheless extremely fun to watch in November when all these teams are still vying for a shot for the playoff. Next game here, I guess we could go into the SEC. Missouri surviving an upset scare versus Vanderbilt. Went to overtime. Vanderbilt probably should have won this game at the end. They had a few opportunities. Missouri, a little worried about now with how they looked against Boston College. I know Boston College is a decent team, but now almost going down to Vanderbilt, which would have been a really bad loss. And I was just looking to, despite how good Missouri is or isn't right now, their schedule lines up so favorably that I still think are fully in the driver's seat to make the playoff right now, just the way that their schedule's lined up. They may not lose many games, if any, maybe one game. I think they play Alabama or one of those top-tier SEC schools. But I'm not sure how to feel about Missouri right now. I mean, they're just kind of all over the place, and then just to escape Vanderbilt in overtime, certainly some cause for concern. They're just lucky that maybe their schedule is pretty favorable in that one.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think they do play Alabama. I'm not sure if it's in Alabama or at Missouri, but yeah, their schedule is so soft. So like you're saying, as an easier schedule, you should be winning these games by margin or covering the spread. And this game was 21.5 and or 21, depending on when you got it. So I just thought the number was a little too high. I think, you got to look at that. You might like Missouri, but do you love them that much to be laying 21 at home against another SEC team? So this is more a number play on my part that I love going into it. Vandy executed the game plan nice, was able to run the ball, hold them down a little bit on defense, keep the game somewhat close. And like you said, they could have won this game outright. They got really lucky at the end. I think they might have had a block kick at the end or something crazy to go their way in Missouri at the end to squeak out that win. So very fortunate just to get that win in overtime at home. But, yeah, Missouri's going to be a tough team to gauge because you're right. They don't have a tough schedule. They're not looking good in some of these lower-tier games. I think the team they had that was really good last year, I thought was a lot better and could have made some noise if they would have had this team this year. So this team lost a lot on the defensive side, especially, and the offense just not really clicking like it did last year, not looking as smooth. So, yeah, Missouri could be a team to watch with their schedule. They're going to have to start looking better here, and they have that big game against Alabama. So, like we talked about Vandy, look to them, maybe back them in some of these if they have some high spreads just because of the way they play. They run the ball, chew the clock a little bit. So, I don't know if we'll get as high of spreads now with Vanderbilt, but definitely a team to look at in some of these SEC games going forward.
Yeah, no, for sure. We'll see what happens with Missouri as the rest of their schedule shakes out. But I think they have A&M coming up, so that'll be, I guess, a losable game for them, a big game for really both of them. But that'll be their next kind of test to see how they look, or we'll get a real feel. Kick it over to the Big 12. I kind of just wanted to review this game just because it was just kind of insane. SMU and TCU, in case anybody missed it and wasn't really on your radar, over 100 total points scored in this game. It was 24 to 21. SMU put up 24 points in the second quarter. I'm looking at it now, 17 in the first quarter. And then another 24 in the second half. They ended up with 66 total points to get a win, 66 to 42 over TCU. So SMU certainly moving to the Big 12, and they certainly learned how to play their defensive style because giving up 42 points, tons of yards if you like offense, 396 yards there by Hoover in that game. Bench had 166 yards for TCU, receiver, 2 touchdowns, just absolute chaos in this game, 66-42. SMU, though, gets the win, so good for them. But, wow, I don't know if you had the chance to watch this game, but crazy, exceeds 100 total points. I think we're having some
totally the game for you. I was trying to scoreboard watch a little bit later on the day Saturday and literally double, triple take this game. I'm like, SMU, 66 points. Where was
I think we're having some connection issues maybe with Mr. Paisley at the moment. But yeah, yep, I'm here. Are you able to hear Mr. Paisley? I think he's just lagging a little bit on internet. We'll see if we get him back here shortly. Next game here, Tennessee controls Oklahoma 25-15. This was a SEC game, SEC opener for Oklahoma. They won the game 25-15. Kind of a weird game. Tennessee looks like they could have won this game by a lot more, but they kind of it seems like they let up a little bit. I don't know, or Josh Heupel, this was an emotional game for him at Tennessee. Used to play there, used to play with Oklahoma. 25-15, though, he gets the win. Tennessee controls Oklahoma, and now they're kind of off to the races in the SEC itself. And we'll see if we have Mr. Paisley back. He shut off the camera. How's your connection, Jared?
I'm good. Can you hear me now?
We're able to hear you. Yep.
Okay. Sorry about that. Having some technical.
Yeah, no worries. Technical difficulties. It's all right.
The charger here just stopped working for some reason, so a low battery, but hopefully we're getting that situated.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
But yeah, the Tennessee game. I wanted to touch on this one because this was a fun one to watch. The best game of the weekend last weekend. Really physical game. I thought both defenses really came out to play. I was really impressed with the Tennessee defense, even more than Oklahoma's, but Oklahoma's really kept them in the game. Nico, the quarterback for Tennessee, played really well, I thought, in the first half, and then kind of stymied a little bit in the second half. Couldn't really get it going, but did enough, made some nice big-time throws to get them over the edge. And then the Oklahoma offense, just what's going on there? I mean, they were struggling the entire game, couldn't really run the ball. The turnovers were sloppy, just couldn't really really put a stamp on that game. And they had some opportunities too early. So if you backed Oklahoma plus the points, they could have been in that game and maybe taken a lead. So a little frustrating on that end. And then they had to make that quarterback change at halftime. Gave him a nice little spark in the second half. He was really athletic, could throw the ball 100 miles per hour, but definitely a little raw. So it's definitely going to be something to look forward going forward with Oklahoma is the quarterback position, because it seems like they got some nice pieces everywhere else. The defense is, I think, top 10 in the country. So just got to get that offense clicking a little bit, and hopefully it'll get better for Oklahoma. But big win for Tennessee to go in there. First road environment we talked about for Nico, the true freshman or true sophomore quarterback. So Tennessee could be a legit team if this defense could keep up the way they're playing. And just one last thing, we talked about their secondary being an issue. This D-line might be good enough to maybe cover up the secondary a little bit. They get a great pass rush. Teams can't run the ball on them. So this defensive line, if they keep playing at an elite level, could maybe cover up and put a Band-Aid on some of the secondary from the struggles that Tennessee might have down the road. But Tennessee, really impressive performance.
Yeah, no, it was impressive. 12 points scored by Oklahoma late in the fourth quarter, so it was a much lower scoring game, I think, than I expected it to be. But the recipe was there for Oklahoma to try to stay in the game. I mean, it was a lower scoring game. Went into the second half, it was still a two-possession game, definitely winnable. Just kind of a weird feeling game. But Tennessee does escape, if that's the word you want to use. They get the win. They did get the cover. The cover with the spread was only 8 points here when this thing closed. And yeah, now they're certainly off to the races, not only in the SEC, but national implications for Tennessee. They're certainly feeling it. So they go to Georgia late in the season. That'll be a fun one to watch. Maybe we'll be there. Who knows? But big win for Tennessee.
And they also have Alabama, too. Tennessee has still some nice games on their schedule. Yeah. And like the SEC is just challenging in general, so it's not going to be easy every week. But that was like a different game. You wouldn't think Tennessee would win. A little low scoring, a little more defensive, a little more running the ball. So it was very impressive to see them win on that side and not a high scoring, offensively powered game. So maybe Tennessee, we got to view them a little bit differently this year than maybe that team with Hendon Hooker back in the day where they were putting up 50, 60 points a game and the defense was terrible. This might be a little bit of a different Tennessee team.
Yeah, it's got a different feeling for sure.
Mm-hmm.
To the Big 12, we'll kind of close out the Week 4 recap with this game. I kind of just caught it at the towards the end of this game. I really wasn't paying too much attention to it. But Kansas State just getting pummeled by BYU 38-9 in this one. Just not a good showing for Avery Johnson. 2 interceptions, only 130 total yards for him in Kansas State. I know some people were kind of on BYU when this thing closed. I think I may have mentioned something last week about a lot of people with BYU with the points, but just absolutely getting humiliated. Huge win for BYU. Just when we were getting high on Kansas State, they were coming off the big win at home against Arizona. They started to look like the clear-cut, team to beat in the Big 12. And then they just do this. They lose 38-9. Now we're talking how it's probably Utah, the team to beat in the Big 12. But just disappointment all around for Kansas State this week.
Yeah, very disappointing for Kansas State. This you're right. It flew under the radar a little bit. These late night games on the East Coast sometimes they're happening on the West Coast. Tip off at 10, 10:30, 11 are a little tough to stay up the whole time for some of our viewers here, but don't sleep on some of these games. They still mean just as much. So, yeah, 38-9, just a little crazy. I had to double take this final score too and be like, really? BYU, we talked about, yeah, they showed a little bit better. They might be like that Illinois team that maybe everybody was down on. They actually might be a little bit better than you think. So maybe, just change a little bit your viewer, how you view them and stuff. But Kansas State, yeah, I mean, they were either the number 1 or number 2 team in the Big 10 or Big 12 going into the year. This was tough, and we kind of outlined this in the Arizona game where Kansas State does have trouble throwing the ball. They're a really good running team. Avery Johnson could run really good as a quarterback, but when he's asked to throw the ball, if they're down in games, that's a huge issue. So we saw it in this game on the road at BYU. Just couldn't do it, only 9 points from the offense there. So very disappointing for Kansas State there, but still has a lot of ground to cover in the season. They could definitely bounce back in the Big 12, but that's a shocking game for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely stunning. And just the margin that this game got to 38-9, just disappointing. I don't know if BYU's now a contender in the Big 12 all of a sudden. I don't really know much about their team. I didn't think they were going to be very good coming into this year, but they're 4-0, and now they're 1-0 in the Big 12, and they just beat Kansas State. So we'll see how their season goes, but they might be a team to watch, mid-November and see where they're at in the standings.
Yeah, I'd keep an eye on them. I don't know if they could make a run at the title, but definitely a team that could keep some games close and maybe have a couple more upsets along the year. But yeah, BYU, take an extra look at them going forward here.
Yeah. And so that's pretty much most of our week 4 recap. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to talk about, bigger story from week 4, just looking at some of these other scores quick. Clemson controlling North Carolina State 59-35, big game for Klubnik, 3 touchdowns. NC State just kind of continues to disappoint. It seems to where at least I thought they could be this season, letting Clemson get up 59. Bowling Green almost knocking off another top team. Obviously, as we all know, a couple weeks ago, almost knocking off Penn State. Here they are in now College Station, Texas, only losing to Texas A&M 26-20. And then San Jose State, Washington State. This was last Friday night. I just wanted to give it a shout out. Also over 100 total points and a thrilling overtime game there. Washington State 4-0, slowly unbeaten, 54-52 over San Jose State. So I just want to throw some of those out there since I think we're doing pretty good on time. I don't know if you had any thoughts, any of those or any other week 4 action.
Yeah, I think Washington State's a fun team to watch. There's so many teams to choose from in college that have so many different identities and stuff. So Washington State, if you have a chance to watch them, their offense is fun. They put up a ton of points. Can't really stop a lot of teams. So again, as a betting angle, maybe look to some overs once Washington State gets going here. But yeah, there's some fun teams out there that could really put up a lot of points and maybe not stop the other team. It could make a lot of great viewership going forward. And then I think we touched on last week with Clemson, and we wanted to just shout them out really quickly and say, hey, I think the national media, the attention is that they stink, they're terrible because they got blown up by Georgia. We said, hold on, a lot of people get blown up by Georgia that week 1 game. And I think they're starting to prove it now. Not that they're a national championship team, but I think they're a lot better than what people are giving them credit for. So they kind of did this last year where they had a couple bad losses early, and then they actually played really well at the end of the year. Klubnik does look a lot better. I don't know if I'm fully in on him as a quarterback, but he is definitely – I mean, that's 2 weeks in a row now. I think they put up over 50 points, and that's impressive against whoever you play. So Clemson, definitely a team. Don't just let one game early on in the year sway your thinking of them. They could definitely maybe be an ACC title contender here. They don't play Miami during the regular season, but if they could get through their schedule, meet up with them in the ACC title, that'd be a fantastic game later on in November.
Yeah. No, that would be awesome. And Cam Ward leading the Heisman odds. He just looks incredible right now for Miami. So that would be a heck of a game to watch. Winners and losers, I guess, of week 4 before we just get into the week 5 preview for the second half of the show. Mr. Paisley, I'll just kick it to you. Who do you think won week 4?
Yeah, my winner is going to be JMU. That was also a game that kind of flew under the radar a little bit. JMU put up 70 points. A lot of high-scoring teams, as we're noting this week in college football. So JMU putting up 70 points against UNC at UNC. This is a Division I team. JMU is just newly in Division I, so a huge win for the Monarchs there. They put up 45 or 50 some at halftime.
Yeah.
Also another game I had to double check when I was scoreboard watching later in the day. So really impressive stuff from JMU. That was a nice showing from them. UNC has now bounced back against Duke in a nice rivalry game there. Usually huge in the basketball world, but should be nice in the football world. So I'm interested to see now, can UNC bounce back this week against Duke? But just a really impressive showing from JMU offensively in this game.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I actually JMU was on my radar, and definitely a fun team to watch. Ton of points. I think they're unbeaten still now through this point in the season. So like JMU a lot. They were a covering machine last year, I think, by the way, too. The first 7 weeks, I think they won they were unbeaten, but they covered also. And they ended up with a really good record. I think 10-2 or 11-1. They lost to Appalachian State late in the season. But JMU, yeah, great. Definitely a winner of week 4. My winner of week 4, it's not Colorado because I'm not giving them any points for anything, just because they got lucky for a little Hail Mary that they happened to hit. So good for them, but not the winner of the week. My winner of the week beat my winner of the week previously. So now by this, they are now appointed the new winner of the week. And that's going to be the Fighting Illini of Illinois. Big win for Illinois. You're unbeaten here at this point of the season. You go into Lincoln, you get a win on the road. You're the underdog. People now are talking to you. You're ranked in the top 20. So good times ahead for Illinois. I think they're a little bit better than we thought they were. Luke Altmaier looks a heck of a lot better than he was last season. Their defense is playing really well. And now they got a big test this week, obviously, against Penn State. We'll talk about that game, and I don't think they're going to win that game. So might as well give Illinois the week 4 winner, because I don't think they'll be there next week. But if they do beat Penn State, they will be the first ever back-to-back winners of the week for the PB Betting podcast. So I'll throw that out there. But anyway, just impressed all around. Illinois going in Lincoln with a big win. And a lot of still winnable games for them in the Big Ten, and we'll see what happens with them. But definitely good feeling should be in Champaign, Illinois.
I like it. And, shout out Mikey Paisley, a longtime listener of the pod, good friend, right. Taking online classes that we shouted out in the preview pod. Is he the difference this year, making Illinois better from his online classes there? So yeah, love the shout out to Illinois. My loser of the week, to transition to a little more negative, I'm going to go Jackson Arnold, the quarterback for Oklahoma, who started the game. Had a rough first half, as we outlined, and rewatching that game on Sunday night, he turned the ball over right after they got a turnover 2 times. The one was set up on the 4-yard line, the other one was on the around 50, 45-yard line. So just some boneheaded mistakes. The one was a bad fumble. The other one was a backwards pass that was very close. I don't know if it was truly backwards pass, but that's what they ruled on the field. So really frustrating for a coaching staff that done everything right, had a good game plan, and just quarterback just couldn't really execute down there. Had some nice throws, and he has all the talent. Like watching him, the arm strength is great. The feet, he can move, but the decision-making in the RPO game is he just doesn't have it. He was pulling the ball, not letting the running back run when he probably should have, and then maybe letting the running back go when he should have pulled it. So he's just making some careless decisions with the ball. Kind of reminds me a little Will Levis in the NFL, if you want to transition there to the Titans, where has a lot of talent, has the arm strength, but upstairs mentally, I don't know what's going on. And he's costing the team some games. That could have been a huge win for Oklahoma. They could have won that game if they would have just had a couple key plays go a different way early on in the game. So Jackson Arnold is my loser of the week. I don't know if he's starting the rest of the year, so it could be a tough break for Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, probably not. By the end of that game, it seemed pretty clear that Oklahoma may be making a change at quarterback. So disappointing for him. Good loser of the week. I might as well give mine to a quarterback then also. I'm going to give mine to the team as well, but mostly Avery Johnson, Kansas State. Disappointment. I was pretty high after the win against Arizona, and I know I'm reiterating myself, but just what a joke. 38-9. I mean, give me a break. I'm just absolutely blown out on the road. Not a good game. And Avery Johnson, 2 interceptions, 130 yards. You force Will Howard out of town. He goes to Columbus. Everybody in Kansas State's acting like, oh, it's a good thing we have this new great quarterback. Well, he looks not very good right now. So we'll see how they rebound and what happens with Kansas State. But they are my loser of week 4 just because of where they were at leading into this. They get the big win over Arizona. You go on the road and you're a 6-point favorite, and you just not only lose a close one, you lose 38-9. Blowout. Kansas State gets destroyed. BYU is the winner. Loser of the week, Kansas State and Avery Johnson.
Yeah, got to be able to throw the ball, the quarterback position. I think you don't really see this in the NFL because they're professionals, but in college there are some quarterbacks that can't throw the ball, but they can run really well and are still very successful on the college level. So when you get in some of these high leverage games, if you really need them, we'll get to this later about a certain quarterback from Notre Dame, but you got to be able to throw the ball. You can't be just a running quarterback. So going to be interesting to see how Kansas State approaches that going forward now.
Yeah, and that gets us right into the week 5 preview. Got a decent slate of games, a couple ranked matchups, a couple teams that we've already talked about in the recap that have bigger games this week. So we'll just go in really no particular order, mostly just from the earlier games throughout the time on Saturday. Kentucky going to Ole Miss. This is a game that I just wanted to touch upon pretty quickly. Nothing in depth, but Ole Miss 17.5-point favorite. Totals 52.5. I added this game late to the run of the show here. It's just going to be interesting to me to see, one, if Ole Miss can keep covering. They've been covering all year. I think they tied for the most amount of covers in a row. It seems like them and Tennessee have been able to score at will this season. And big game for Kentucky, too, going now to Ole Miss. We saw what they did against Georgia. A lot of defense kept them in that game. We'll see how they handle the high-powered Ole Miss offense. This spread's at 17.5. Totals at 52.5. I think I lean Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss at home. I may add that to my slate on Saturday. We'll see. But going to be an interesting game for both of them in the SEC. And finally, a real team also Ole Miss has to play, by the way. Let's just throw that out there. Been giving Ole Miss a lot of credit. So we'll see what they do with Kentucky coming to town. 17.5-point favorites, Mr. Paisley, SEC showdown in Oxford.
Yeah, I think you laid out a lot of great points, Case. Can Kentucky replicate what they did against Georgia that night 2 weeks ago? I think they're coming off – or they played Ohio last week, which is basically a bye. They crushed them. So it should be a nice test for Ole Miss, like you said. First true SEC opponent, got them at home here. Spread's a little hot. If you believe in Kentucky and you think they could keep it close with their defense, that's a lot of points. But Ole Miss can score in bunches. And one thing to note, too, just about Jackson Dart and what Lane Kiffin is doing, he's making an initiative to really push for Jackson Dart for the Heisman. So he's leaving him in late in the game. They're throwing the ball late. They're trying to get his stats up a little. Jaden Daniels that they were doing at the end of the year at LSU. So just something to keep in mind. Maybe not the full thing, but betting-wise. But like we talked about James Franklin last week against Kent State, they were struggling to score early, and then he kept scoring at the end there. Not that he was scoring at will or keeping the stars in late, but just these little tidbits could really make the difference when you're trying to cover a big number or something like that. So Ole Miss kind of leaving Jackson Dart there, put up some points late. So I don't really have a play on this game either way. I think it's a good line, a good total. So I would maybe lean Kentucky, a slight lean, but not much there. But it should be a good one to see how Ole Miss will play against a pretty solid defense in Kentucky.
To Ann Arbor, Michigan, up north, Michigan back-to-back home games. Obviously gets the big win over Southern Cal last weekend. This game, they have Minnesota coming to town. 35.5 is the total. You would think I'm looking at Iowa, Minnesota, or Iowa versus, I don't know, another Iowa. Total's 35.5 with Michigan playing. That just goes to show you that the Vegas odds makers have zero faith in any points by really either of these teams. And I think this game originally I thought could be like, 24-10, 24-3, 17-7. I don't know. And it seems like that's where the total kind of is. I still think I like the under in this game, really, just because I don't think Minnesota's going to score in this game. I think I think it's going to be like a 21-0, 28-0. If it goes over, it's probably going to be because Michigan was finally actually able to click offensively and just score. They're only a 9-point favorite, so that's kind of close there, which is interesting. It seems like there's something to be played on this game. I just don't quite know what it is. I think, as you said, too, in previous podcasts here, either week 2 or week 3, Minnesota's really not a good football team. And they go to Michigan, a tough environment, and, the spread's only 9, but the total, 35.5. I don't know. I think right now I'm just looking at the under, which is crazy, but not sure what to think in this one.
Yeah, last week Iowa beat Minnesota by, I think it was 14 or 17, so pretty good margin there. But I think Iowa was a pretty solid team. So, yeah, now you got Minnesota traveling on the road here at Michigan. A little letdown spot for Michigan. They definitely put a lot of energy, a lot of thought into that USC game, needed it. Was a huge win for their season so far. So, tough spot for Michigan to kind of bounce back here. I'm kind of with you. I would maybe lean under just because I don't see Minnesota scoring in this game. I think the line's a little short. It did open up like 10, 10.5. It's starting to come down. So I don't know if I could trust Minnesota with the points. So it'd probably be Michigan or nothing here. But just in one note, again, just trying to give you guys some more information, stuff to think about, just so you get a lot of thought points on this. But Michigan as an underdog, I think, is a solid play because they run the ball, because they can't throw. They'll shorten the game. They have a good defense. But you don't want to lay a lot of points. Now, 9's not a lot. But that's just something to keep in mind with Michigan, is that they're not a high-flying offense. It's going to have a lot of opportunities to score. Or they're not explosive to score a 70-yard touchdown here or there, maybe on the ground. But so 9's like kind of the cutoff point, but you don't want to be laying like they were last week against Arkansas State or 2 weeks ago, where it was like a 22, 23-point spread, and then they weren't even covering close the whole game. So this spread's not a terrible spread. It's only 9, but just something to keep in mind with some of Michigan going forward. There's some teams I'd rather bet as underdogs versus laying points with them.
Yeah, that's a great point. They're not going to score a lot of points, and it's going to be hard for them to kind of get that 2-3 touchdown lead, especially against, a respectable defensive on the side of the field, Minnesota. So we'll see what happens in that one. Total is just so low. I can't get that out of my head, 35.5. Michigan, we'll see if they what they look like this week after the big win against Southern Cal, if they could keep that momentum. Big 12, number 20, Oklahoma State going to my loser of week 4, Kansas State. Kansas State, 6-point favorite, totals at 45.5. In this one, a week ago, this game may have been up there with Georgia, Alabama that we're going to get to. I mean, not quite, but Oklahoma State, bad loss, not a bad loss, but losing to Utah, who's now seems to be in the Big 12 front runner, falls down to 20th in the rankings, and Kansas State just getting humiliated by BYU, falls down to 23. So now all of a sudden you got Big 12 implications on the line, but for the loser of this game might be catastrophic-wise for the Big 12, the way you're sitting now at this point of the season. So must win for both of these teams, big game for both of them. That's why it's kind of going to be exciting to watch, to see who kind of starts paving their way in the Big 12 as we're getting to October. This will be through week 5. We're kind of getting to that point in the season. I'm excited to watch this one, even though Kansas State's my loser of the week. We'll see if they could rebound. 6-point favorite, totals at 45.5.
Yeah, both teams need this game desperately after what happened last week. Both teams could really use a nice bounce back statement win here. But yeah, it's a tough matchup. You'd rather have one team that really needs it and one team that's kind of skating by. But this time it's tough when there's 2 teams that really need this win. Somebody I listened to, or I read an article, said Oklahoma State's a great team when you don't expect them to win, and then when they have expectations that they need to win, they always seem to fall short. So tough game to judge with Oklahoma State. They probably should win this game. They're now going on the road, getting 6, close to a touchdown. But is this going to be the game where Gundy draws it up and they win a game they shouldn't? The big question is going to be, with every game against Kansas State, can you stop their ground attack? If you could stop their ground attack, make Avery Johnson throw the ball, you could be in for a nice game there against Kansas State. But I look on the Oklahoma State side too. Alec Bowman's been there 7-8 years, and he still doesn't look competent back there. He struggled last week against Utah. Kansas State has a good defense, not a great pass defense, but a good run defense, and they just can't get Ollie Gordon going. I mean, he was supposed to be one of the best players in the country. He's not doing much in any game. So they can't really unlock him and let him explode and get some, huge yards in this game, it's going to be tough again. I don't know if I trust Alec Bowman, but the number's a little high. I wish it was a little lower, and I'd maybe trust Kansas State more here at home. But even at this number, I think I would still take Kansas State. Maybe look at the total here, 45.5. I think both the teams could score. I think in the past they were more defensive led, but I think these defenses are a little leaky. So that's kind of a low total for a college game. So I'd maybe look at the over here and then maybe a little chunk on Kansas State.
Yeah, no, I like that play. 45.5 is definitely an interesting number, and they're at home, Kansas State. So we'll see if they could get the cover. I'd probably lean Kansas State as well. But either way, it's going to be fun to watch two teams that are must-win situations, especially this early in the season, trying to avoid their second loss. So that'll be a good one on Saturday. Wisconsin going to Southern Cal, first time going to Southern California as a Big Ten matchup. Spread is 15.5 for USC. We know USC with the loss last weekend up in Ann Arbor. Now they kind of get the opposite end. They come home. They're the favorite now. They got Wisconsin, who's a 15.5-point underdog, who seems to have had a lot of problems scoring so far this year in Wisconsin. So we'll see how that pans out for them. Either way, it should be an interesting game just because of at least where the spread's at. Wisconsin, obviously, the early loss to Alabama. Spread was actually around the same. I think they were a little bit more of an underdog, maybe 17, 18 points there. But here they are sitting at 15.5-point dogs going to USC. Total is 50.5.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I think Alabama closed like 16-17, so right around this number. And like we kind of use, doesn't work all the time, but like we mentioned earlier in the pod with the Texas USC comparison against Michigan. So a little bit different here. Wisconsin's traveling on the road, but it's kind of around the same spread as Alabama. I was a little shocked by this number. I know Wisconsin doesn't have their quarterback. I know they've been struggling. It's hard to trust them on offense at all, but I think their defense could keep them in it just a little bit more than people think maybe. So I would maybe lean Wisconsin, but then again, I'm going to try and target a total here. I kind of like the under 50.5 in this game. I think USC's defense very much improved. They kind of got beat up a little bit, so they're going to want to prove that they're actually still a pretty good defense. I think Wisconsin's going to struggle to score, but I think their defense will kind of keep them in this game. They're with Coach Fickell there leading the defense as a head coach. I think he could devise a little bit of a game plan, maybe slow them down a bit. So I just think it's a little high at 50. I'd kind of make this maybe middle 40s or, around there. So maybe getting a couple extra points, but yeah, would maybe look to a total under in this game.
Yeah. I think we'll know really early too the pace of the game, how it's going. First quarter, second quarter, how is USC's offense look against the Wisconsin defense? Is Wisconsin able to move the ball really at all? I mean, compared to how they played against Alabama with that total at 50.5, I think I'd lean under as well. But this is a big game really for both of these teams as well to see, if USC could avoid an early upset here. This would be, a catastrophic loss for them with their playoff implications this year after the win against LSU, slip up against Michigan. So kind of serious business now for USC till you really get to Penn State on October 12th. You got to win these next few games. I think it would be a little more fun if USC had to go to Madison for this one, but nonetheless, they were just in Michigan, so we'll see what they could do. That one also Saturday.
Yeah, just one more quick point. USC did lose a couple guys in that game against Michigan. It was a very physical game, like we mentioned. So maybe just check the injury report to see they might have some key positions. I think especially on the offensive end. So just maybe check that. And also with Wisconsin too, it's hard to judge a backup quarterback when they get thrown into a game, especially against Alabama. Now he's had a couple weeks to practice. He knows he's going to be the starter. So you're expecting maybe a little bit better performance, maybe not a whole lot better, but this guy got thrown into it against Alabama. Now he's got a lot of practices underneath him. So maybe they could kind of figure out what works best for him at the quarterback position for Wisconsin there.
Notre Dame having number 15 Louisville come to town, a big game, top 16 game. Not many ranked-to-ranked matchups this week. This is one of them. Louisville kind of under the radar in the ACC. We knew they'd be pretty good. Not sure how good they really are yet. They haven't really played anyone yet. They did get a big win against Georgia Tech a week ago. They played an easy non-con game week 1. They played Jacksonville State week 2. So not sure how good Louisville really is. They go to South Bend, Indiana, to play Notre Dame, who got the big win against Miami, Ohio last week. Sometimes they struggle with MAC teams, so congrats to them on the avoiding the upset there, Mr. Paisley. And I want to get your thoughts. What's going to happen with Notre Dame this week? I'll let you're the Notre Dame expert here. What's going to happen? Spread's at 6, so they are almost touchdown favorite, and the total is at 47.
Yeah, the spread's climbing up. It opened around 4 on Sunday, and now it's up to 6.5 at some places. So a lot of money on Notre Dame. I don't know if I agree with that. We'll get into that a little bit, but it's a great question. What is Notre Dame going to do this weekend? I don't know. I watched that game back again Sunday night against Miami of Ohio because I missed it on Saturday. This team might be the most inconsistent team in the country. They are hard to bank on. They have no consistency, especially on the offensive side. They were sloppy again in the first half, turning the ball over, careless plays. Leonard's missing easy throws. Defense still can't stop the run that great. The secondary is really good, as we know. But I think this is a tough matchup against Louisville. I didn't agree with this early money on Notre Dame. I didn't bet anything yet on the spread here. We'll get to the total in a little bit. But I think Louisville is actually playing a little bit better than we think. You're right. They haven't played anybody yet, so this will be a big test. Their quarterback, Tyler Shuck, who was from Texas Tech a couple of years ago, always got injured. He's healthy at the moment. So Louisville's big question was their health. They have a couple new players. They seem to be gelling a little bit. So I just think this number is getting a little bit out of control here. I think this should be closer to like 3, honestly. Notre Dame, the final score looked good, but if you watch that game, they still were a little choppy. They had a turnover inside the 5 that they got against Miami of Ohio on the first possession. And they held them to a field goal the one time after the guy missed him on a deep shot to maybe put up another 7 points. So I think Notre Dame got a little fortunate. The pass game did look better for Notre Dame. Riley Leonard's starting to throw a little bit better. He had his first passing touchdown of the season, actually. It was a nice 40, 45-yard touchdown. So I think this game will be very slow paced, not a lot of scoring. So that's why I'm going to be leaning to the under in this game as a full unit play. But I don't know. I just don't agree with this line move. If it gets up to 7, 7.5, I might have to take Louisville here. I just still got to see one more game from Notre Dame to prove it for me. They haven't been great at home this year for some reason. They've been better on the road. So I think Louisville's a little bit better than people are giving them credit for. So I just think this line's a little too inflated. I think people are just looking at the final score, but the box score and the tape don't really show a huge lot of confidence in Notre Dame. So this will be a great test for them this Saturday.
Yeah, you said it. I just don't know what Notre Dame team we're going to get. You know, are you going to get the Notre Dame team that goes to Texas A&M with the big win? Or are you going to get the Notre Dame team that controls Purdue for, 60 straight minutes? They looked like, Ole Miss, Tennessee out there, if not better in that game. And then obviously we know what happened at home just a couple of weeks ago with Northern Illinois. So inconsistency is I think the number one word for them. Will they be able to, win at home? How will Leonard look at home? I'm not sure either what to do in this game. Typically in these weird situations, I would lean kind of Notre Dame as I did when they played Purdue and I took Notre Dame laying the points. I don't know. That was a couple weeks ago. Now you got Louisville, who's no doubt about it, a lot more talented than Purdue. So I'm also undecided. The total's sitting at 47, but it'll be nonetheless a big game. Certainly we'll see how that game also shakes out in the first half. I think that'll give us a good idea of what type of teams we're playing and what we see in that total sitting at 47. But yeah, that'll be interesting. I was just looking too out of curiosity. The ESPN Power Index, not that it really means much, did have Notre Dame a 70% shot in that one. So they like them on paper. So we'll see. Lines up with the spread, I guess, but that one is Saturday as well.
Yeah, and just one more quick point. If you're back in Notre Dame, they did have a tough loss at Louisville last year, so they do have a little revenge on their mind.
Oh, that's right.
It is a green out. It's their only
late
green
in the season.
That
was late in the season, that game?
It was kind of like I think it was like around Halloween, like late October, so definitely kind of crushed them, their hopes or of anything going on. Notre Dame last year was kind of a tough loss. They kind of embarrassed them too. They were scoring late. They lost by 20 or 25. So just something to keep in mind that plays a factor. But I think Notre Dame will be a little more focused coming in to Louisville this year than what they did last year. So it should be a fun game, though.
That one also, Saturday afternoon. This game, I can't believe it's actually here because it doesn't make any sense to me. Ohio State, it has to play a actual football team this week for the first time in 2024. Ohio State is playing also on the road. So they have a real game. They're on the road at Michigan State. They're 24-point favorites. Ohio State, I guess, seems right. We'll see. Total sitting at 48.5. Ohio State beat Western Michigan 56-0. They blew out Akron, and they blew out Marshall as well last week. So this will be an interesting one. They got to go on the road. I'm not sure. We don't really know what Ohio State is yet because they haven't played a real team with real football players on it yet. So spreads at 24. This one, it might be, I don't know, is it prime time? I don't have the time in front of me, but this one's Saturday. What are you thinking in this one, Jared? Ohio State, Michigan State.
Yeah, Marshall looked good for the first 2 minutes against Ohio State and then did nothing the rest of the game, went up 7-0, maybe gave him a little scare. But, yeah, I'm with you. I think you hit it on the head. This will be a great test for Ohio State to see how they match up. Michigan State definitely a bottom team in the Big Ten, but have a good quarterback, have a good head coach. So, maybe might be a little more dangerous than some of these bottom feeders. So, I don't know. I also at this game and thought the number was a touch too high. At 24 here, it keeps climbing up. So if you like Michigan State, maybe wait on it a little bit. I don't know if I love it backing Michigan State. Obviously, I don't like them to win, but can they keep it within 24? Like we said, this Ohio State team's a little different than years past. They're a little more defensive-led, a little more run game. So they're maybe not going to be putting up these huge explosive plays through the air. They might have some nice big ground games, but this could be one I might be dabbling in Michigan State plus 24 in this one.
And Michigan State has looked a little bit better, I think, than people thought they were going to look this season. They get the win over FAU week 1, who I know is not really a great team this year either, but a couple people were on FAU. I think I was at the time. And then you almost knock off Boston College on the road just a week ago. So they're competitive. We'll see. This will be a real test, obviously, for them, too. What type of team is Michigan State going to look like there against Ohio State? But that one, first real game for really both of those schools. Well, I guess Michigan State has the win over Maryland, so that was a big win on the road. But that one's Saturday. All right, approaching an hour, so we'll wrap up here quick on the Week 5 preview. A couple big games left. I can't believe this one is a top 20 showdown, but Illinois going to Penn State, number 19 Illinois. Nittany Lions 18-point favorite in this one, total 47.5. I think at this point we know what Illinois has, could do. We know what type of team they are. They're really physical. They have decent quarterback play, but strong defense. And they kind of just wear teams out. And they went into Lincoln, got the big win. They have a couple other pretty good wins this year, and now they got to go to State College, which is going to be a tough place to play. No doubt about it. Under the lights there on Saturday, 18 points is a lot for Penn State. But as much as I would say, I think Illinois with points, this could just be one of those games where, the Penn State offense, if it gets clicking, we'll kind of know, what kind of hour are we going to get? Is Illinois going to be able to move the ball? So that's where I think, they're definitely going to be outmatched. I think Penn State has a pretty good edge talent-wise. I know they have a banged-up secondary at the moment. They lost one of their best safeties a week ago with an undisclosed injury, so we'll see how that impacts them. But if the pass rush is able to get to Altmaier, I'm not sure Illinois is going to have much of a chance. He threw 3 interceptions last year when they had Penn State at home. The spread's minus 18 in this one. Jared, as a non-Penn State fan here, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, I think the main question is just how much gas does Illinois have in the tank after that game at Nebraska? Back-to-back road games, like we mentioned, in 2 tough environments. So really got to bring it here. So it's almost like you almost didn't want Illinois to win last week if you were looking to back them this week. So huge win for them last week for the program. But, yeah, how much gas do they have left? Well, you're right. It all starts with the number, minus 18 right now. It's a little high. I think for how good Illinois is looking, it's a 19 versus 9 matchup. Anybody would look at them and be like, wow, give it 18. So if you want to go in layman's terms and simple terms, it might be a little too high. Then you dig into the situation. Good spot for Penn State coming off of a bye. And then Kent State, offense looked good later on in the game. Defense shut them out. Yeah, Penn State at night usually tends to play well, but just something as a non-Penn State fan, I feel like Illinois kind of plays Penn State a little close going back to maybe the last 4 or 5 years. So maybe just some, maybe
coaching historical games with Illinois.
Yeah, I just feel like some reason they keep it close. This number is maybe not one I'd like to love with Penn State, But if you're back in Penn State, you got to believe in that offense to put up points, which they have looked very good to start the year. But if I'm back in Illinois, how much gas they left in the tank? If they could give a good performance, this could be a maybe good live bet. If the first quarter goes awry, maybe just stay away. But if Illinois kind of could keep it within, 7-10 points in the first quarter, first half, maybe look to back them later in the game. But should be a nice, fascinating one at night in Happy Valley. Always a fun game to watch on television.
Yeah, Saturday night prime time, that one, and it's competing against, which I'm very disappointed because I'll be at the game there in State College on Saturday night, which means I'm going to miss large portions, if not all of the number 2 Georgia going to Alabama. So I definitely would have to rewatch that one. Alabama getting a point at home. I don't think it's happened any time in recent history. I was reading some things this morning. So they're the underdog. They have Georgia coming to town. Kirby Smart 1-5 against Alabama in his tenure there at Georgia. The total 48.5 in this one. We kind of just know this is a huge game. College football implications, playoff implications, SEC. What type of team are we going to get in Alabama? A lot of cool things to look at, and it's really cool. It's going to be, we're sitting here at the end of September talking about a top 5 game between Georgia and Alabama. Should be fun. Mr. Paisley, what do you think is going to go on there in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, awesome game. It's going to be so fun to watch, see these two teams go at it. First time in a while I saw since 2007, I think, that Georgia's traveling to Alabama with fans in the stands. The last time they traveled was 2020. So Georgia does not play in these road environments a lot. If you look back, they don't really play in these high leverage where the team is really, really good and they're on the road. So going to be a huge test for the program overall. One of my first thoughts after the Kentucky game was, I wonder what this is going to do to the spread of the Alabama game because, it was maybe around 5-6, maybe even 7 of how dominant Georgia looked after Clemson. Now that one data point, is Georgia's offense really broken? What's going on?
Right.
I was looking to back Georgia here. I'm still going to stick with it. Definitely going to do some more research on this one as it being the biggest game of the week, but I definitely like Georgia in this spot. I think also the fact that they were able to get that win at Kentucky, so they got the win, but then they played terrible. Now they get to be on their players a lot, get on them at practice. They're going to be focused and ready for this next matchup. Both are coming off a bye, so they both had a bye last week, but I think you have 2 weeks of Kirby Smart telling the team you're not that good. We almost lost Kentucky. Now we got Alabama, who they also lost to in the SEC championship last year and took them out of the playoffs. So motivation factor, I think, is all on the Georgia side. I think Alabama still is a new program with a new head coach, DeBoer there. So I think they're super talented. I would also lean to the under here. I actually like this under at 50.5 on Sunday when I grabbed it, now down to 48. Some possible weather in this game. There might be a hurricane or something coming through a lot of states. So just keep that in mind for a lot of the games here. But I kind of like Georgia in this spot. I'm interested to see where this line goes, but I think I'm going to be on Georgia here. I have faith in this offense. I think it'll turn back around. The defense will obviously always be there with Georgia. So I just think this line's a little too short. If it's going to be a pick 'em, give me Georgia. But if it goes up to, maybe that 5, 6, 7, which it won't now, maybe you would like Alabama with the points. But I think it's all about price. I think it's a little underpriced. So give me the Georgia Bulldogs, get a little revenge here and as a short favorite on the road.
Great points, Mr. Paisley. The weather, by the way, it's showing it's going to be a nice day there in Tuscaloosa, according to Fox Weather. So I don't know if that's true or not. Hurricane may be past, not sure, but just want to throw that out there. This is a big game for both teams, and historically, Alabama has showed up in these situations every single time. Georgia has showed up most of the time, but not every single time. And it's going to be a big game, no doubt. And even if Georgia loses this game or Alabama loses this game, the SEC is still fully on the table for both of these teams moving forward through the rest of the year. You could win the SEC. I mean, everything's still in front of you, which is, a new aspect of this college football playoff era is one loss is not as detrimental as it used to be. So we'll see. The data point of Saban not being there is interesting. It's kind of we haven't really seen the full effects of that yet, obviously, as we are still in September of him not being there. So I think throughout the season, will tell us more about Alabama. I mean, this game's going to tell us a ton about both these teams. I think they're both real good teams. So we'll see what happens. Saturday night prime time, Georgia at Alabama. All right. So that being said, went through the week 4 recap. We got the winners and losers of last week, the week 5 preview. Might as well jump right into the week 5 bets. Obviously, if you are if you're a previous listener, you know we release the picks every Saturday morning here on Twitter. But we also released them a little bit, or some of the picks on today, which is Thursday, here on Twitter, some preliminary picks. And then Saturday morning, we'll release the full slate of picks that you saw in the first 5 minutes of the video of everything we picked officially, won, loss, and all of our records. And all that is kept and shown weekly to see how we're doing so everybody at home can see. Mr. Paisley, I guess I'll kick it to you. We'll pick a few of them here. What is one of the bets that you're going to be rolling with here in week 5?
Yeah, we'll be rather quickly with these. We already touched on some of these games, but I'm going to go Louisville Notre Dame as an official play under 47, 46.5, depending on where you get it now. I got this number at 48, so it's starting to come down a little bit. Like I said, both quarterbacks can run the ball really well, can't really throw the ball downfield as well as some others. I think it's going to be a run-first game for both teams. I think the defenses are a little bit better than average, so I think they're going to be able to control the game. So give me this game under the high 40 total of 47, we'll call it.
Okay, I like it. Under 46.5 in the Louisville Notre Dame game. I'm going to go Rutgers again. Back-to-back weeks with Rutgers on my Thursday pick here, but now they were getting 2.5 in Virginia Tech. Now they're minus 2.5 at home. They have Washington. I'm not a geographer, but all I know is that is a lot of miles between those two states, Washington and Piscataway, New Jersey. So Washington having to travel all the way to Rutgers. Rutgers, a team that is kind of looking pretty good, a little bit better. People are talking about them. Washington, the opposite, where people are down on them. Last year, you almost won the national championship. Now you look terrible. You lose to Washington State. Now you got to go to Piscataway, New Jersey. If the season's not going worse enough, you got to go all the way to Rutgers. I think Rutgers is going to win the game, and I think they should be able to cover a field goal. I think they could low scoring affair, win this game, maybe by a touchdown. But it's kind of been my thought process so far this year with teams like Rutgers and Washington, some of these other Big Ten schools. So give me the Scarlet Knights laying 2.5 and continuing their undefeated season.
I like it. And that might be one of the longest travel for any team has to go on for the whole year, I feel like, from Washington to New Jersey there. So I like that pick. I'm going to go with Western Michigan +4 now in the market against Marshall. I think this game, these teams are very evenly set. I just don't think this line should be that high. Again, it was 5.5. We'll talk about line moves the whole time, down to 4. So it's going in the right direction that we got it at. So I just think these teams are evenly matched. Marshall coming off a very physical and beat down against Ohio State. I like Western Michigan overall. They were a little bit of a question mark. We had that nice game against Wisconsin. If people watched that in week 1, kept it close. Have a lot of talent. Just have to start to put it together. So give me Western Michigan on the road here, +4 at Marshall.
I like it. I'm also going to go with underdog with points. Wisconsin +16 going to USC. We talked about the game earlier. I'm on the Wisconsin side of things here. I just think it's a little bit too many points. I think Wisconsin's not a great team, but they are used to lower scoring games, and if they could hold Miller Moss and USC from scoring and things getting out of hand early, I'd love to get to halftime at like 10-3 or something, 7-0. I don't know, but would be nice if Wisconsin could keep this one close. I think they do. I think that's a lot of points for them. We'll see how USC looks after going to Michigan last week with the heartbreaking loss there. So give me the Badgers +16.
I like it. And that line's going up, so maybe wait on it if you want a little bit to get a good number. Just keep an eye on it. But I'm with you there. I like that Wisconsin. Too many points there. My third pick, I'm going to go University of Louisiana at Wake Forest over 61. I think both these schools have good offenses. I think their defenses aren't that good. I feel like this game should be a little bit higher in like the 65, 60, high 60 range. So that was just a touch short at 61. Wake Forest had that tough game a couple weeks ago against Ole Miss. Going to look to bounce back offensively. They only scored 6 points in that game. So University of Louisiana, a good over team. They give up a lot of points, but they have a good offense and they score a lot of points. So give me Louisiana at Wake Forest over 61.
They are the Raging Cajuns, correct, Mr.
That is
Basil?
correct. Yes.
Love the Raging Cajuns. Always pick them bowl season as well, just with some other teams that we mentioned in the past. I like the over. You think of Louisiana, you think of no defense and a lot of points. So I like the pick a lot, over 61. I'm going to just go with 3 picks this week. I'm going to kick it from the Big Ten to the ACC. I'm just going to keep riding here with Miami. Laying 19. You got Virginia Tech, who just looks god awful right now. You have Cam Ward in Miami. I think this is the Friday night game, which I realized this a few hours ago after I kind of was sold on Miami. So I'm not backtracking, and I like Miami, and they are going to cover. But if I had any argument for Virginia Tech, it's that, in a half-empty stadium on a Friday, Miami tends to, make these games a little interesting, lower scoring. We'll see. But that's what, the people that are wrong would say. I'm going with Miami. I think Cam Ward plays great. I think they're going to blow out Virginia Tech at home, lay the points. Give me Miami minus 19 on Friday.
Yeah, Miami's looked very, very impressive, especially on offense. So not a bad point there. They're a good favorite team to back there. I'm also going to go with a Florida school here, a little different approach. I'm going to go UCF team total over 38.5. Now, yes, that is a lot, but we didn't mention Colorado a lot in this show. They're playing the Colorado Buffaloes. Colorado, we didn't get to recap their game, but came off a crazy Hail Mary to tie the game up late. Won the game in overtime, punching out the ball right before the goal line, getting a stop, getting the ball back, scoring in overtime. So just a huge variance game. Probably shouldn't have won that game, honestly, if we're being all honesty. But now they go to UCF, who is coming off of a bye, has 2 weeks to prepare for this. And UCF likes to run the ball, like we talked about in previous weeks. Colorado cannot stop the run. So this, I think, is a terrible matchup. I love that Colorado spent more energy than they needed to against Baylor, got the big win. They were celebrating, talking their stuff after the game like they normally do when they get a win. So I think Colorado's coming in a little overhyped. UCF was just sitting back, waiting back. I think they'll score a ton of points. I like the over in this game, but I think a safer play would be to go with the UCF just to score a lot of points in general, just in case Colorado comes out a little flat. But give me UCF over team total and maybe UCF minus a spread, 13.5, 14 could be a little bonus play if you like that too.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I always like anytime betting against Colorado too. So 2 birds, 1 stone there. Central Florida over 38.5 team total. I think it is a good pick there. I'll definitely be looking at that one as well. So that pretty much takes us through our week 5 bets, but the icing on the cake here, the PB parlay exclusively released here on the PB podcast weekly. Me and Jared will just give 2 kind of underdogs that we like for plus odds, chance to win, usually decent payouts. Last week it did hit, so that was great to go 1-1 on the first few weeks of that at plus 504 odds. So this week we are, well, Mr. Basie, I'll kick it to you first. Who's your pick in the first leg of the parlay?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a short underdog. I think we both have some short underdogs here. It's not as juicy odds, but we'll still get to the total at the end here. But I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bearcats on the road at Texas Tech. I think Cincinnati is a little bit better than we are giving them credit for in the market. I like to think about, like, all right, if one game goes a different way or one play at the end of a game, how would we view these teams differently? And that could be a couple points to this point spread. So Cincinnati had that game won against Pittsburgh. They lose the game, heartbreaking fashion. But Pittsburgh actually is looking pretty good, as we saw. So that loss doesn't look as terrible. Texas Tech a little fortunate in some of their games this year. Scores are a little misleading. So, again, I just think it's a little bit mispriced in the market. It was 3.5. Now it's starting to come down a little bit. So give me Cincinnati to win on the road plus 124 over at DraftKings on the money line.
Plus 124. I like it. And we are going to tie that game, Jared, no matter you like it or not. Alabama plus 110 at home, slight underdog against Georgia. I just think they're going to win the game. I mean, it's simple as that. I think that at home, they have Georgia coming, who has not been able to really win there historically. It was my same reasoning with Michigan, with not having 2 historic losses early. Maybe none of that is related, means anything, but this just feels like a perfect recipe for Alabama to kind of get a big win, make a statement without Nick Saban. You know, there's a lot of questions. And you were talking motivation for Georgia earlier, and I agree. I think there is a lot of motivation for them, you know, with the SEC loss last year. But I also think there's a lot of motivation for Alabama. These guys are trying to, you know, a lot of these guys were committed here with Nick Saban. There's been a lot of talk, you know, that Alabama's not the same team without him. And I think that they're going to make a statement too. I think that they're very motivated to win this game. They have the home crowd advantage, which for once, I think they will all stay to the end of the game with a real opponent coming to town. I know that's always a knock on Alabama, so I do expect a strong home atmosphere under the lights and really in just these type of games. And, you know, throw Kentucky on it, how Georgia looked. But I don't know, even without that, I still kind of just like Alabama in this spot. And as you said, they're both coming off buys. So I'm going to lean Alabama and take them in the parlay. You know, we'll see. Might be totally wrong. Georgia might win by 20, but I think Alabama's going to win the game here. That gets us to plus 370 odds. The P&B parlay of the week, plus 370. 100 gets you 370. We hit last week. We're trying now to go back to back at plus 370.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't in love with the Michigan pick last week, and you saw that through clearly. So I have a lot of faith in my partner here in the PB betting circuit. So yeah, I'm all for it. I think it'll be a super close game. And just another betting note: if you like Georgia, play the money line. If you like Alabama, try and get some points. This might be a 1-2 point game. Maybe we get, you know, if they could cover for the spread, but obviously for the money line parlay, we need them to win outright. But I think if you like Alabama, take them plus the points. But obviously for the parlay, take them in the parlay to get the odds up a little bit. And let's go 2-0, 2 weeks. I would love another hit here on the parlay for the fans.
Yeah, absolutely. So that pretty much wraps it up. As always, we appreciate all the viewers here of PB Betting Podcast. If you're from Uncle Lou / LouTube's YouTube channel, breaking down Georgia football, we appreciate you guys coming over, taking a look at our page and the picks. As always, feel free to DM us, send us your picks in the comments or the DMs to us. If you hit a good bet the previous week, just send it our way. We'll feature you on next Thursday's episode as our bet of the week. So feel free to always do that. Yeah, as always, just a great another week. We're excited. College football slate is here, and we'll see you guys next Thursday.